And welcome into a special edition of PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox, PressBoxOnline.com. And we are brought to you today by AJ Michaels, expert and award-winning AJ Michaels heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and home performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. It does always come up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. We thank them for sponsoring these Zoom talks with me, managing editor of PressBox and a baseball fan of a great knowledge, and that is Luke Jackson. Luke, how are you today?
Great. Just watching a little golf, working on the paper, just a normal Thursday.
All right. And today was supposed to be opening day. And
it was supposed to be, but it will be tomorrow.
They banged it about 24 hours ago. It hasn't really rained here. It is getting darkening by where I live in Pikesville right now. But I think they made the right move yesterday, rather than have a risky situation on an opening day when you got a full house, everybody excited to see the game, and you really had the risk of it being a stop and start and long wait and just a mess.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it still may very well rain. I think it's supposed to still rain in the next few hours here. So, I was at an opening day. I want to say it was 16 or 17 against the Twins, where it was supposed to start at 3. It began in a rain delay. It restarted around, I want to say it was like 4:30, and then there was another stoppage about 45 minutes after that, and it ended up being like a 6-hour day at the park. And that's really what you want to avoid. You want to avoid those kind of days. You don't want opening day to be played across the 6 hours and the final out is recorded in front of 20,000 people. You don't want that. You don't want people.
Yeah, and people on an opening day are also arriving. Sometimes people are arriving earlier, and it becomes too long a day and just not enjoyable.
And I will say that I think the Phillies game was banged. The Mets game was banged. I think there was another one. And clearly MLB didn't want, multiple opening days to be affected by rain. So you build in this off day for a reason. And they obviously stepped in and said, let's just move the festivities to Friday.
Yeah. So tomorrow afternoon at 3:05 game time at Camden Yards. And Luke, this is our second straight Zoom. Not you weren't a part of it. That we've got a little bit of an issue with freezing, and I don't know if it's me or you, but you froze up. But we'll plow through it, okay?
Okay.
But it might lead our viewers to say, why are they talking over one another? Because when you freeze up on my screen, I feel the need to go forward and put my best foot forward.
So yeah, you're freezing up a little bit as well, but we'll
still have the best foot. Don't I? We'll plow through it. All right. Your thoughts, Luke? The Orioles are 3-3 coming into home opener. I think all things considered, been a pretty good start to the season.
Yeah, obviously they should be 4-2, because they should have won that Saturday game in Fenway, but stuff happens. And you could look at that Saturday game and say that they could have added on in multiple occasions, didn't do it. And really the entire series in Fenway, they didn't pitch very well. They didn't defend very well. They didn't play a very clean game. But they played a much cleaner game at Texas in those 3 games, even the game they lost. And then I would say that, 2 big highlights so far this year, Tyler Wells, 5 innings of emergency relief to really get the team back in order after Kyle Bradish got hit with a comebacker in the foot. And it seemed like the pitching staff might already be teetering. He sort of came to the rescue there voluntarily. Told Brandon Hyde, let me put on the spikes. Let me throw in this game. I'm ready to roll. And then obviously Grayson Rodriguez yesterday gets punched in the mouth a little bit in the first inning and bounces back like I've seen a couple times with him in the minor leagues. Rough first inning, especially with fastball command, and then locks it in. So that was great to see.
Just curious, the Orioles they faced, I believe, in Boston on Sunday. They faced a 3-0 deficit, tied the game like that with the Adam Frazier home run, and then didn't have a shutdown inning once they tied it. And yesterday, the same thing. Would you have given any thought to letting Grayson go back out there for the sixth?
I think his limit was probably 5 innings, unless he was on a super low pitch count, which he wasn't. I think he threw 83 pitches. He
Yep.
pitched very deep into games in spring training, and he
Yep.
didn't pitch very deep into his first game in Norfolk. So I think he was probably on a strict, 5 innings, 80 pitch kind of deal. And then I would think the next outing, which I assume will be in Baltimore because Bradish is now on the IL, I would assume that he'll be able to graduate into that sixth inning and then go from there. So no, I thought that he would probably be on a pretty strict 5 inning limit this time around.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the bullpen so far this year? Obviously, it was the club's great strength last year. You have the unfortunate situation. You and I talked about it off the air, where Bautista on Saturday, while that ball's in the air and it's about to land in Ryan McKenna's glove, he is kind of checked out. He said,
Right.
"Hey, this game's over. I got to save." And it's not always easy to flip that switch back on and just go back to work. But overall, Batista and Perez are shining so far. But the loss of Givens and, of course, Tate starting to show up a little bit.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this the other day when I took a look at the Orioles 26-man roster when it first came out on opening day. But one of the big glaring things for me was who was going to be that second right-handed reliever behind Felix Bautista. And it seems to me that Logan Gillespie is getting a shot at that role to pitch some pretty important innings for Brandon Hyde. And Brandon likes his stuff. He's always liked his stuff. He tried him in a couple big spots last year.
You're talking about Bowman, right?
No, Gillespie.
Gillespie. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
And so the moment might have been a little too big for Logan last year. He looks a lot more confident on the mound this year. He's got, like I said, he's got really good stuff. He's showing better command than he did last year. I would expect him to continue to get some high leverage opportunities while the Orioles wait for Givens and Tate. Obviously, it seems like Givens isn't that far away, but at this point, the last time he pitched in a game was like 2 weeks ago in spring training. So I would assume that they're going to have to send him on some sort of assignment to the minor leagues to get some work before he comes up to Baltimore. But I don't think it'll be too long. And then the other one with Tate, that's going to be a little time. And so it seems like that's going to be at least, mid to late May before he comes back. And remember, with Tate, once he gets going, he has to basically do his own spring training.
Yeah.
Because
no question about it.
He didn't participate in any of the games, didn't pitch in any of the games. He hasn't pitched competitively since the end of last year. So he's got to get built up, and we'll see where that takes them.
One good bit of news out of the minor leagues at Norfolk. They've got their starting pitchers do not look that good, but they've got 5 relief pitchers headed up by Darwinson Hernandez, who has 2 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts and a 0.00 ERA and a 0.00 batting average against. Nick Vespi has pitched 3 shutout innings. Crable has thrown 2 shutout innings. Eduard Bazardo has thrown 3 innings of shutout ball, and Yenier Cano has pitched 2 innings of shutout ball. So that's a group of 5 relievers that have thrown 12 innings. And I will tell you this, if the Orioles don't listen to me about DL Hall, they have another DL Hall in Darwinson Hernandez in their system now, picked up from the Red Sox, who at one time was thought to be a great starting option in Boston about 4 years ago. Failed at being a starter and ultimately failed at being a reliever there, had some injury problems. But if the Orioles could straighten him out, that is a wild card arm to come up and help them this year.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned a couple guys down at Norfolk who are pitching well. They've got some guys on the 40-man roster down there who are pitching well, who are just a phone call away. And they would only have to make, obviously, the one roster move to get him up here. Whereas with Hernandez, I don't think he's on the 40, so they would have to make an extra roster move for him.
Cano on the 40?
Yes, Cano's on the 40. And
he would probably be
I was at the last game of the year at
First guy up, probably.
At Camden Yards last year. And Cano had really struggled up to that point for the most part. But I thought that that last game, believe it or not, I thought he looked really good. And maybe he's carried that over into this year. I think you'll see Cano. I think you'll see Vespi. I think you'll see Hernandez. You're going to need, obviously they've thrown, I guess, 14 pitchers already. And what you're going to need, at least, I would think, about 27 to 30 pitchers to get through a season. So you're going to, everyone that you mentioned, they're going to see.
That sounds about right to me. Yep. Not so bright on the other side of the coin is starting options once you get by Grayson Rodriguez, who's up here at least as long as the Bradish injury takes time. And that looks like at least a 3-week, healing, ramp up, and being ready to pitch again. And probably might even include a start at Aberdeen or Bowie for Bradish before he gets back on a big league mound. But the options down there, Bruce Zimmerman, a 3.86 ERA, DL Hall, and these are all 1 starts. DL Hall, a 9 ERA, Spencer Watkins, and Drew Rom at 5.40. It was interesting. You and I were talking as soon as the Bradish injury occurred, and we just didn't think they would turn that quickly to Grayson that immediately, but I was glad that they did that quick and about face on him.
Yeah. I don't think they felt like they had very many options at that point, because I don't think Zimmerman would have been on turn, and I don't think Watkins would have been on turn.
Right.
So Grayson was the guy who was on turn, rested, ready to go. And then if they didn't go to him, basically it would have been a bullpen game started probably by Austin Voth,
right,
who was the designated long man behind Grayson Rodriguez. And if they're going to put Bradish on the IL, which they did, they're going to need a starter for the next few weeks anyway. So bring up Grayson. I know he didn't have the spring training that they were hoping for. He didn't command the ball the way they were hoping. He really hasn't commanded the ball the way they were hoping since he came back from injury. We saw one of those rehab starts at Bowie last year. However, after the first inning yesterday, you saw a lot of what makes him a special prospect in terms of the easy velocity, ability.
Don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah, the ability to throw a curveball over and spot that, ability to throw a changeup over, spot that, and he didn't really have command for the slider, but for a couple. So he didn't really have everything going yesterday, but still in those final 4 innings, you saw what he's all about, and you saw why they're so excited about him.
One of the things, and it's something that I maintain, and I don't have a degree in psychology, and I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I'm a big believer in the psychology of it. And I think the way this came about was probably better for Grayson than having come up with the team, waited till the 4th or 5th day to start, rather than just sort of being thrown into the thing, not time to overthink. And I think it may have gotten him over an important hump yesterday.
I hope you're right. And it actually fell nicely for Grayson in the sense that he got to debut in Texas, not far away from his home. I think it's about a 3-hour drive for his family to get to the Rangers ballpark. So and the moment with his dad after the game, I don't know if you saw that.
I did see the tape.
Just absolutely terrific. And that's something that a lot of us can relate to.
The flip side of the Orioles pitching, so far, so good with most of the hitters. I guess I would say the biggest disappointments so far, small sample size, are Anthony Santander batting .259 and on base at .259, and Gunnar Henderson struggling, but because he's walked 6 times, which is a great sign for a young hitter, his on base percentage is terrific, 360 something.
Yeah, when Santander was hitting well in the World Baseball Classic, I texted a buddy. I said, "You know what this means? It's going to have a slow start to the season." Excuse me. Excuse me.
God bless you.
And so that's exactly what's happened. Obviously, they're counting on him in the middle of the lineup. He's going to bat 3rd or 4th every day. So I assume that this is just a little 6 week slow start for him. Excuse me, 6 game slow start for him. And then Gunner's going to be just fine. That home run he hit in Texas, opposite field, to the opposite field power alley in left center. That was classic Gunner. That's exactly what you want to see, and you're going to be seeing a lot more of that this year. And the at bats he had in Boston, even though he didn't get a hit, were pretty good.
Yeah. In other words, when you get a young hitter like that who's scuffling to get hits, it's very easy to see that strikeout to walk numbers be totally inverted, where he'd have like 9 or 10 strikeouts and 1 walk. It's a sign of what a good it's a sign of what a good hitter he is, that he's doing just the opposite of that. And he's got the 6 walks, which still make him a a bit of an important factor in the club's offense in the early going.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it seems like Brandon's got him in that 5 hole against right-handed pitchers and maybe a little bit lower against left-handed pitchers. And I assume that that's going to continue. He got the day off on Tuesday because he got smoked with a ground ball in the wrist, and then but he came back for Wednesday's game. So, and that's probably a great experience for him to face DeGrom and see that kind of elite stuff and command. And DeGrom was on yesterday, so that's a good experience for him.
Yeah. One of the things you got to be excited about a little bit so far is that the Mateo that we saw in 2022, especially that month-long run, there's some of that in this Jorge Mateo. He looks, I'm sure that the on-base percentage will never be 330, but if he could be on base at a 300 clip instead of a 269 clip, that's a lot more potential for wreaking havoc on the base paths. And he just looks very comfortable defensively out there.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. And a guy like him is going to be very valuable defensively without shifts, because you need athletes. You need guys who can cover ground, because the shifting really covered up for some things in terms of, the guys were just placed where hitters hit the ball,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
not necessarily the case anymore. You're going to have to go get it. And he's someone who can go get it. And I think what would be most encouraging to me, if I were Brandon Hyde and his staff, that both of the home runs he hit this week were off breaking balls. And we saw him in many cases last year sort of get out on the front foot with those breaking balls and lazy pop-ups and things like that. Was able to stay back on those breaking balls and drive those out in a park that's not easy to hit home runs in. So that was good to see. One of those was a bomb.
No question about it. Luke, the game tomorrow starts at 3:05. It's opening day for the ball club. One last question. The club has 3 games in a row against the Yankees Friday afternoon at 3:05 tomorrow. Night game Saturday, and kids opening day on Sunday. That'll be a packed house. No, on kids opening day, that's a promotion that has really gotten some legs. But who are you most excited by offensively so far this season? I'm wondering if we're going to say the same person.
Ooh, that's a good one. Who are you going to say?
I'm going to say Mountcastle.
Okay.
I'm always, and anybody that's talked to me over the last 4 years, they know that I'm always so cynical about what I see there. He's such an incredible athlete, and everything he does is so smooth, except for one thing. There's all this talk in modern baseball now about swing decisions. And I know the people that use that term aren't talking about making the decision to swing before the pitch has left the pitcher's hand. And I think Mountcastle has a habit when he really looks bad. It's that he's made a decision. I'm going to swing at this pitch, whatever it is. And he just swings, not even in the same zip code as the pitch landing.
Yeah. So that's a good one. Mountcastle made a lot of hard contact last year.
Yep.
Not rewarded. He had his batted ball profile was really, really good in terms of his quality of contact. And maybe what we're seeing so far this year is that evening out a little bit in terms of the results. And you and I did one of these a
Yep.
couple months ago, and I said that he was my pick to click this year. That I thought that he was going to have a chance to have a breakout year because, like I said, the quality contact was really good last year, and he just wasn't rewarded. So maybe we're seeing him being rewarded a little bit more. I also like what I've seen out of Cedric Mullins, especially some of his at bats against left-handed pitchers. Took Chris Sale deep in the Saturday game, if I'm not mistaken. And then he's had some better at bats against lefties than we saw for really much of last year. Remember, in the second half of last year, he was either dropped to the bottom of the lineup against lefties or just taken out of the lineup against lefties.
Yeah.
So that was going to be a big deal for him. And I like what I see in those at bats from him. Hopefully that continues.
Yeah. I like what I've seen so far by Adam Frazier. I especially like his on base ability too.
He's
I
an
think,
upgrade over Odor.
yeah, I think it's a big, huge difference. And we all liked Roof Ned last year for what he brought to the team, the intangibles. But there's something more tangible about a guy who can get a 335 or 340 on base percentage than a 270 on base percentage.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
All right. And I'd say the early signs are that Austin Hayes looks a little bit better too. He looks more comfortable, more confident than I've seen him at any time in his career.
For him, it's just a matter of staying healthy. On one of the broadcasts this week, they were talking about how he was banged up the second half of last year. But, part of being an everyday ball player in the major leagues is fighting through that stuff and learning how to do that and remaining productive, even with the bumps and bruises and that sort of thing. And let's see if he can put two halves together this year.
All right. Hey, that's going to wrap it up for this special edition of Press Box Live. I want to remind you that we've been brought to you by AJ Michaels, expert and award-winning AJ Michaels heating, AC, plumbing, and home performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. Air conditioning season is coming up fast, and it always does. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. Luke, Monday night, Ross Grimsley and I will have author Lee Lowenfish, who also was an American Studies professor of mine way back in the 70s at UMBC. He's written a new baseball book on scouting entitled, I think it's still entitled, Endangered Species, about how the world of scouting has changed and so many of the old timers are being sort of tossed aside to more modern methods of scouting. We'll talk to him. And then next Thursday evening, Gary Stein and I will either have Dr. Elliot Hirschman, the president of Stevenson University, or AD Brett Adams to talk about the opening of the East Side campus there, with a lot of ramifications involving their sports programs and intramural sports there at Stevenson University. So it's going to be an interesting chat one way or the other. All right.
Great.
Thank you for sitting in on this. You and I will also be back on Monday afternoon, taking a look at the Major League Baseball power rankings. Okay.
Oh, and there's sure to be some movement in Stand the Fans rankings.
I think
the Nationals might even get up to like that 15, 14 kind of range, right?
Who's that? Which team? Which team was that?
Oh, I was just joking. I said the Nationals are going to make a big move.
No, I don't think the Nationals are making a big move. And nor do I think the Oakland A's are going to make a big move. Nor do I think the Colorado Rockies. The one mover there might be the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's interesting that they went in and swept Boston.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Ben Cherington, it's been a slow process, but he's added some talent on a budget there.
Yeah.
And, right now they're in the middle of a contract negotiation with Brian Reynolds, and they're haggling over opt-outs and things like that, but they can get him locked in for the long term. And with the pieces they have coming, they've got the number one pick this year, and Dylan Cruz might be that guy. And he's one of the best draft prospects we've had in recent memory. They've got Henry Davis coming. Like, that could be a pretty exciting roster in like a year or two. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing is they should look at the big picture picture there and not be penny wise and dollar foolish. They should tie up Brian Reynolds, even if they have to give him the opt out. They'd still have him for all of 23, all of 24, all of 25, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's a good chunk of time, and let the chips fall where they may in 3 years. But right now, it would do a lot for that fan base to say, hey, they're starting to make a marginal commitment there.
And with the Reynolds thing, I think it probably comes down to a matter of trust, because if the Pirates trust that if they get this thing moving in the right direction, in a couple of years, even with the opt out, that maybe Reynolds would be amendable to doing like a bigger contract extension at that point once he sees the commitment there. And that's where I think it will come down to trust.
Yep. And those fans there in Pittsburgh will support the Pirates if they sense that the team is investing. They got a great ballpark there. So that's a team on the move a little bit, I think. I'm not getting ahead on my skis. I'm not predicting they'll end up in the top 15, but they might bump into the top 20 this year before all things are done. All right, that does wrap us up for today. For Luke Jackson, I'm Stan the Fan, and we'll see you at the ballpark tomorrow at 3:05. Bye.